I saw a comment in the Speak Them I did last Saturday from somebody named YJ2 Clash of Clans, and he goes, "Can you make a video on helping friends who are depressed?" So that's what this video is going to be about, and about helping friends who are depressed. Now, the thing is, first and foremost, one of the things I really take issue with is people not knowing what depression actually is. Some people think that depression is like, oh, you're sad, just snap out of it. Oh, do this and you'll be better. And it doesn't always work that way, especially clinical depression. Depression is not a feeling of sadness, even though there is sadness in the emotions you feel. It's more so a feeling of helplessness. It feels like you're trapped, you're in a bind. And sometimes what's scary about depression is you don't know where it's coming from. Sometimes you have to go to therapy, counseling. Sometimes you might never find out, but sometimes you just get depression. It's clinical. It's just your dopamine levels in your brain being a bit unbalanced. That's essentially what it is without going into too much detail. And you'd be surprised. You really would be surprised to how many content creators on this platform I know. It's a lot, trust me, that have depression. I mean a lot. Some of them have gone public with it. In fact, Quaman did a video called How Gita 101 Saved My Life, which is why I'm making this video, because I've dealt with this before. And it's about how he went through his depression. I kind of talked to him and whatnot. And the thing with depression is he's not the only one. Other creators, you'll never know they have depression. People like to hide their depression by being, the tears of a clown. They like to be entertaining and funny and happy, and a lot of times that's not how they really are feeling. You know what I mean? And we always keep things to ourselves. Well, many of us do, including me, and don't talk about things. But I want to talk about this here. So I've been depressed in the past. I don't have clinical depression, but I have had it. And not clinical, but I've had it comes and goes during certain things. And I've tried to address, the whole thing. But as far as helping friends who are depressed, first and foremost, you have to understand that telling somebody, oh, just be happy, or that's not how it works. The thing about being depressed is if you're close to the person, maybe you should figure out why they're depressed or why they think they're depressed, because sometimes they're willing to talk. One of the things that really helps with a lot of people who are depressed is just talking. And it doesn't have to be talking about the depression. It could be talking about other topics or things they enjoy. But talking is a very essential, useful tool when it comes to depression and dealing with depression. In addition to that, you're not a counselor. I mean, maybe you are. If you're a psychologist, you probably shouldn't be listening to this. But this is going to be a video for those who probably aren't psychologists, But you have to realize that you're not a psychologist. You don't know how to really break these things down. And so you can't really focus too much on fixing the problem, because you might not be able to. But what you might be able to do is maybe encourage your friend to seek counseling if they can afford it and figure out the root of the depression. Because the thing about depression is if it's clinical and you need medicine for it, that's one thing. But in other cases, it can be resolved through therapy and counseling. But I think that therapy and counseling is very overpriced in some cases, even though they deserve to get paid what they do. And some folks can't afford it. The thing about depression and how to help somebody out is what you got to kind of do what I try to do here on this channel, and that's try to reassure them that whatever pain they're going through, that it's only temporary. That's a big thing for me, and I feel like that's really effective. Try to be there for them, and even if it means sacrificing some of your time, if you love the person, you'll do that for them. And that's, to me, a very, very important thing. I think that's a very... it also builds love. Now, there are helplines. There's a national helpline of substance abuse and mental health. I think it's 1-800-662-4357 HELP. I think it's free as well. That could help because you're helping somebody out, but that's not everybody wants to do that. The main thing is, first of all, you have to accept that depression is a serious condition, and you have to also accept that hiding it is not going to go away. And sometimes it manifests in different ways. Sometimes it's, being lazy or unmotivated. You might think somebody is when actually they're depression. You really can't fix someone's depression, but you should be concerned. The thing is, you have to remember that being a compassionate listener is the most important thing, as opposed to just giving advice. You want to make sure you listen to the person and really try to take in what they're saying. And like I said, reassure them, that you're concerned and you want them to be better, but you're there to listen. And sometimes that's all it takes, just being a good listener for them. One of the questions you can ask them is, what do you think happened that made you start feeling this way? What triggered it? Because sometimes there's a triggering factor to it. That's one thing. And you want to assure them that they're not alone. No matter what, you got to make sure you tell them they are not alone. Because even though we all have different lives, I assure you that whatever depression you may have or your friends may have, it's been felt, something similar has been felt by somebody else before, whether it be relationship depression, business depression, children, work related, whatever. Human beings have been on this planet long enough that we've all kind of been through the ringer here. And you want to make sure you tell them that if they're feeling suicidal, this is kind of a very tricky thing here, because it's a dangerous thing. You don't want to tell them not to give up, but you want to tell them to try and seek help before doing anything rash. You know what I mean? You don't want to let your emotions take over. And you make sure you tell them that they're important to you and that their life is important to you and that them being in your life is important, because that's part of it. Maybe they won't do something rash. Maybe they just need somebody to talk to. Maybe they're doing that for attention. I mean, everybody's different. And when they do it for attention, it's not really a bad thing. It's like, they're basically seeking, it's a cry. It's a cry for help. It's what it is. And sometimes people do that. That's how we do it. One thing you don't want to do is you don't want to tell people, and this is a big one. I've made this mistake. Okay. You don't want to reiterate that it's all in your head, because sometimes it is all in their head. Sometimes when we're depressed, it has to do with fear and anxiety over something that isn't really that big of a deal. But you don't want to tell them that in that sort of phrasing. You want to kind of, listen to them and make sure you validate their emotions and validate that they're feeling a certain way, because there's a reason why they're feeling a certain way. But you don't want to make it seem like they're crazy either. See what I'm saying? And you also want to stay away from saying stuff like look on the bright side, because look on the bright side has been kind of a patronizing, somewhat jokey thing to say to people. And yes, the advice comes from the heart in the sense of, yeah, they should look on the bright side, but when you're depressed, you can't. That's the thing about depression, is when you have a depression spell, there is no bright side for at least a little while. And you have to realize that when you talk to them. And also, don't ever say like, oh, I can't do anything. Because you can. Just you being there might be enough for them to feel better. So I've seen situations where people are depressed and they have depression. They actually feel better for sure after just talking. And that to me means, okay, maybe you should get counseling. Also, if you do tell them to get counseling, offer to go with them on the first visit. Especially if you're dating the person. This is crucial. It's really helpful if you go with them, because it'll make them feel that they're not alone, especially if they've never been to one before. They'll feel like it's a new experience, and it might bring you closer to them, for sure. And sometimes what you need to do is just kind of be their friend, support them for their treatment, and you know what? Just be that cool friend who's like, let's go out and get some breakfast. Let's get your mind off of this. Sometimes that helps. I mean, it really, really helps. Exercising has been, and many people feel it helps with that. Others, it won't help, because it just depends on, again, there's different things that help, but it won't help everyone. See what I'm saying? But exercising has kind of been a thing where, it helps. Also, if they are kind of going through a depression where they're very lethargic, maybe you should kind of go in there and do some favors for them. Like if they're, if you take out their trash for them, or clean their room or something, something that's like a nice thing that you would do for them as a friend. Maybe that'll help them kind of, be depressed. And it's frustrating to watch a family member, a friend, or somebody you love go through this, it is frustrating, especially if it's slow, but you got to be patient. You have to be patient because this is a very real thing. Recovering from depression does not happen overnight too often. Sometimes you can make them feel better, but it might not actually, help permanently. It might be like a temporary fix, you know what I mean? And it's good to have temporary fixes because then it might give them more time to think and adjust. But really, the main thing is, just kind of be very supportive of them and understand that it's very real. Like, sometimes depression can make you lose appetite, make you do rash decisions like want to quit your job. Obviously, suicidal thoughts is one of them. Sometimes you actually get headaches from it, and sometimes you actually get chest pains from it, from depression and stress. It's a very real thing. And, just remind them why they're special to you. I think that always helps. And also make sure that if you talk to them and you're trying to reassure them, let them know that depression is not a weakness. It's not a weakness. It's a condition that a lot of people go through and are undiagnosed. I'm shocked now in my age. Dude, when I was a teenager and in my 20s, I had no idea that depression was this serious. I didn't know. I was ignorant. Now that I'm in my 30s and I've felt it myself and I've seen my friends who are younger than me. I had friends in my 20s and teens, late teens, like 18, 19, who have depression. And it's like, I didn't have that when I was 18, 19. Or maybe I did and I just suppressed it. Like sometimes you don't know. Sometimes what happens, and this is what happened to me, is your depression may manifest later in life. Like right now you might be 22 years old. You might be a hot shot. You got a girlfriend, good job, and you're happy. And you're actually miserable on the inside, but it doesn't really manifest until later. Or sometimes something could trigger your depression. Everybody's different. But you got to let them know there's no weakness here. This is not a weakness. But it is a very unusual human condition because it's not something that other animals that we know of, I mean, who really knows, but many other animals in the animal kingdom don't go through this kind of stuff. It's a human trait. And if things start to worsen, don't just tap out on the person. Be there for them. It's really important. And they might need a psychotherapist. They might need medicine. They might not need medicine, but you have to take it seriously. So that's my answer. I hope that I helped a little bit. I'm not a professional when it comes to this stuff. I'm friends with professionals, but I'm not a professional. But I know that I'm not trained in being a psychologist or a psychiatrist, but I am trying to be the best possible person I can be at this point in my life, and I'm always there for my friends, and you should always be there for yours too. Thank you guys, and I'll see you next time.